Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Today, we're actually going to be doing a very special show. We have a special guest today that's going to be talking about a very special subject. With me today is Christina. She played 4 years at the University of California at Berkeley. During her time at Cal, the team was always in the top 5. During her senior year, she was the captain of the team. She played in the top 3 singles. She led the team to an NCAA finals appearance. She was a Pac-10 all academic American. In her years at Cal, she had one of the highest winning records with anyone, over 100 wins. She is currently the Dominican University's head coach. I would like to welcome Christina to our show today.
Thanks, Harry.
Now, today, we are actually going to talk about the real cost of a college scholarship, right? And the time, the dedication, the sacrifice, and the money it takes for a person, a kid, to earn that scholarship. Now, the basis for all this is I see a lot of kids come in and their parents are always saying, oh man, that lesson costs so much, or that clinic costs so much, right? And if the kid's like 12 and they're doing it through 18, what does that cost, right? And what does that sacrifice look like? Okay, so that's why I brought in Christina, and she was nice enough to come and talk to me about this. So my first question to Christina is, what age were you when you first started tennis?
Yeah, so I started actually on the later side. I started at around 7 or 8 years old. So these days people consider that a little bit older.
Did your parents want this for you, or did you want to do it yourself?
My parents were a big driving force for it. I loved playing though, and they totally supported that. I think my parents did a pretty good job in, providing the resources, the emotional support, physical support. I actually have 2 other siblings who both played college sports as well. So I'd say they did a pretty phenomenal job going 3 for 3 and getting us into college sports. So they were really supportive. I would say, now, was it all happy-go-lucky every day? No, there's definitely times that, that were, they really did have to push me, definitely some tears. I would say, one of the moments that most sticks out is like my playing sectionals. I think I was 15 or 14, and I was swearing, whining, and my dad came on the court and didn't really have to say much, but I could tell in his eye that he was just pissed off at me. And he said, pick up your stuff, let's go. And right in the middle of the match, we left the court. And gosh, that ride home was so painful. But I remember my dad, really telling me, and the thing that stuck was that, he taught me these lessons that, college coaches, they're not going to want to recruit you for that. They don't want people who, are representing that. So, they taught a lot of life lessons, but my parents, did they want it for me? I think they did, but only because I really wanted it for myself.
When did you realize that you actually loved the sport of tennis, and that, you could move forward with this into maybe another league?
I think I was about 9 or 10 when I started doing that. I actually started learning tennis at Cal State Long Beach. I was taking lessons from the girls on the team, the coach on the team, and so I was around that. And so I kind of saw like, oh, this is really cool. This is something we didn't even know you could do. You could get scholarships for this. And so I was around that environment at a very young age. So, I think once I really hit like 9 or 10 and started playing tournaments, realizing like this was a possibility for me.
So you played tournaments at age 9 or 10. Were you playing 12-year-olds? Like the 12?
No, I was playing like 10 and unders. They had
Okay.
back then
Before green ball.
Yeah, before green ball. This is all so different now. But before then, you know, they had 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s. But I was just playing the 10 and under tournaments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you win a lot of those tournaments?
No, I did not. no. Starting off, you know, it was all a learning lesson. But my parents were, you know, they were so open to, you know, learning, and we tried to, you know, we had to learn the whole system, drive to tournaments, you know, all through. I grew up in Southern California, going to these tournaments, and so it was all a learning process, especially when you're 9 or 10, and so yeah, my parents were troopers.
So even at that young of an age, because I see people doing it now at starting, it seems like 12. So at that young of an age, that's a pretty big sacrifice for both you and your parents. Like, was that, I mean, did that ever get grueling or tiring, especially when you were that young? Or was it just like, it's fun and we go to Chuck E. Cheese afterwards kind of a thing?
You know, in the beginning it was fun. I think we traveled and we were playing these tournaments, and like I said, I wasn't winning a lot in the beginning, you know, so it was just this learning experience. But as I started getting better and winning matches, and matches turned into tournaments, and tournaments started getting invited to different events and traveling across, you know, the nation, it started to really pick up. And, you know, we had 2 younger siblings, and part of the reason they just played tennis is because we were on the road playing tennis so much. So, you know, it was a lot to juggle at a young age, but, you know, we were also having fun with it.
So did your parents drive the 3 of you to the same tournament like week after week? So it's kind of like a family outing?
A lot of times it was. Yeah, a lot of times it was like we packed the car, we had the igloo, we had stuff for the day. And my sister played the tournament. Sometimes I have a brother. Sometimes he did, but my brother would bring his backpack with all types of stuff. And yeah, we go to these tournaments, and you know, sometimes they were like, get there at 8 a.m. and we're leaving at like 8 p.m. at night, and we're just there for the day. And it was a little bit grueling, especially, you know, as you get older and get into, you know, the 14s, 16s, and 18s. It's intense. It's an intense environment. But I had a good group of support people. I had coaches, you know, I had friends that we loved playing tennis with, and we were surrounded by, so that kind of made the experience like worthwhile.
So I've heard from a lot of high-end coaches that the cusp of quitting is like 13 years old. You know, you kind of moving into puberty, you got a new set of friends, they don't necessarily play tennis. So that's like either to quit or move on kind of an age. Can you expand on that one? Like, did you ever want to quit at age 13?
Definitely an age. I think you're going into high school, you're, you know, learning these new experiences. You know, it was very hard. It was very hard. I would say, you know, missed a lot of, you know, those dances, the proms, the, you know, formals, it's parties, and it's a sacrifice you make. With my family, I remember with my mom having these arguments, like I wanted to go out, and she'd be like, no, you have a tournament tomorrow, and trying to make these sacrifices of like, when can you go out, when can you not, and taking care of your body and all of those stuff. It's a lot, especially for a teenager. And I remember having these conversations with my mom, and my mom just kept reminding me, like, this is all going to be worth it, like, and this is what you want. And she'd ask me if I want, and I did. I truly did, and I knew I wanted to play college tennis or go beyond that. And so that was a constant reminder for me. And, you know, looking back now, I'm so happy that I made those sacrifices, but it's hard. It's hard, and it's something that in the moment as a kid, you don't, you know, everything's in the now, but looking back on it, it was 100% worth it, and it is hard to juggle, but it's worth it, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure at that time, we're not thinking that way. We're just kids. We're just trying to do what we want to do. Tennis is kind of in our way at some point, and then sometimes too. So I totally get it. Now, for you kids out there who are, you know, 8th grade, 7th grade, maybe freshmen in high school, okay? These are for you, okay? These questions are for you guys. Now, is it all about wins if you want that college scholarship? Does your record have to be good? Do you have to be stellar?
I mean, it definitely helps. Definitely helps. I think, being a college coach now, a lot of things we're looking for is also like how much growth do you have? I talked a little bit about the attitude. Are you self-motivating? Are you, taking action on your own? So the wins definitely help. But there's a lot of other attributes that go along with it. The academic piece, the volunteering piece, just the well-roundedness of a person. But yes, if you can go out there and get yourself some wins under your belt, UTR is a big one that college coaches look at. Tennisrecruiting.net. I mean, there's all these other sources now that they didn't have when I was getting recruited back then, but that are really helpful. And I get a lot of questions like, does UTR matter? And it does. It helps. It really helps. It's such an accurate system of your match play experience. And I would say, honestly, if you're looking, it's very important to get that match play experience before you go play college tennis.
So what you're telling me is, if you're gonna lose, right, lose to the bad players, and if you're gonna win, beat a 4-star, right? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Like, come up big in the big situation.
I mean, it definitely helps. I got really lucky at 14. In 16, I had won a couple national championships, super nationals, and that had kind of put me on the board. And so that helped. And I would say what also helped is I actually had my Cal. Most of my family went to Cal. I had my Cal hat on every time I went to go play those finals,
Oh,
so
wow.
they knew I was looking to go there. I wasn't for certain, but anything helps.
Right. Okay. So, in your high school days, how were your grades?
My grades were actually pretty good. I think a lot of times, or at least I've seen hand in hand, tennis players tend to be good students. Not always, but it does matter, and I was a pretty decent student.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, you have to be. I know Cal, right? Even like the basketball players and the football players are scared of that place. That's why they kind of avoid it, because you really have to go to class. You really have to study, right? Because they don't care. They'll kick you out. They don't care who you are. Marshawn Lynch, whoever, okay? She knows Marshawn Lynch, by the way.
Marshawn Lynch is pretty smart, actually.
Got respect for you, homie. Okay. Grades do matter, right? So let's say you had a 14 UTR and you were a 2.0 student. Does that get you into Cal without being Marshawn?
That's a tough question. I mean, there is some balance, right? Like the better player, I mean, maybe the grade point average, but also what comes into play is maybe SAT, ACT scores. There's a huge mix that goes into that recruiting, and each school is different. Obviously, like Berkeley or the Stanfords is, the higher education. Yeah, they require a higher standard, but so it definitely helps.
Okay, so ACT, SAT does matter too. You just can't go through, take the test, and be kind of average and still be okay with a 2.0.
I mean, I hate to say like, oh, you'll get in, but it as a coach too, you're also looking at the whole well-roundedness of the person, and there are a lot of resources to help you in college, but these coaches, you're looking for, these well-rounded student athletes.
Okay. Now, at what age was a college scholarship in sight for you? When did you think that, oh, I can get college paid for me while playing tennis at the college level?
I think I was about 14.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
young. When I got into high school, my parents were big on education, and we'd go visit colleges, even if we were driving around or traveling and there was a university nearby, we stopped and walked through the campus. And so early on, college was something that we were thinking about. And then tennis, was a big part of our lives. So as we're playing these tournaments and we started doing well, started realizing like, oh, this is a possibility. I grew up also learning tennis at Cal State Long Beach and from these coaches, so we knew that there were these possibilities out there.
So, what was the college application process like for you? Do you just go through the regular process, and then is there a sidebar to the scholarship part of it?
Actually, for myself, even before I actually had just really only applied to Cal. I knew I was going there. I had been offered early on after my junior year, which was like the first day you could be offered a scholarship. So I knew I was going to Cal, and so the application process was actually pretty smooth for me. In general, though, college coaches, they're looking at players in the 14s, 16s, early on in the 18s. So they have their eye on prospects, as a sophomore, as a junior. They know who you are. They're reaching out to you, sending information on their school. And it's important to build those connections with those coaches. I would say if you're a junior and you are looking to play college tennis, I would definitely, and you haven't heard from a school that you would like to maybe attend or check out, send that coach an email, get on their radar. You want to be on that radar early. If you are a senior and it's September, October, and you're filling out applications and you're hoping to play on the team, that's too late. Coaches are preparing years prior their recruiting classes, so important to jump on that on the early side.
Wow, that is awesome. Now, I know that a lot of juniors, just from seeing them, they like going and seeing where their name is on rankings online. Do coaches look at that too? Like if you're like top 10, top 50?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, coaches are looking well in advance at all those rankings, all those lists, so that they know if they, should be reaching out to you. So if kids are looking at that, they're looking at the right stuff.
So that's what I'm telling you guys. If you're 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, right? This is the time to shine. Okay? Don't waste time. Don't go watching your cartoons and eating cereal like I did. Okay? Like take it seriously. Be dedicated. All right? So basically you didn't have a backup plan, right? It was either Cal or nothing, but you knew you were going to get in anyways, right? For all those out there who won't have that opportunity or are uncertain of that opportunity, what is your strategy for them?
So, I committed to Cal before. I did have a few other options that we were looking at. It's funny. My dad actually a couple months ago had this big trash bag, and it was just letters, right? College letters writing to us. Back then, email wasn't a thing, so they would send you letters that they were interested in you. My dad kept all of them. And we were looking through them. And for kids who are interested, and you're a freshman, a sophomore, it's this is the time to start thinking about what you're interested in terms of schools, like. Right, jot down some things that you're interested in. Is it like academics? Is it staying in your region? Is it school size? There's a whole bunch of things that come into play. List them so that you can start researching those schools and come I know your sophomore year, junior year, you can reach out to those schools or go take a visit, or start making some connections so that you are on the radar.
I see a lot of juniors uploading videos of themselves on like YouTube, or even sending videos of themselves to coaches or schools that they want to go to. Is that something you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this day and age, we get videos as coaches. We get videos all the time. It's a great way to, just showcase yourself a little bit. Of course, I think in the long run, if you have something in your video that catches a coach's eye, they're more willing probably to make a connection. And in the long run, yeah, maybe they'd love to go watch you in person or meet you in person. But these videos, they now are key. Back then, they didn't have videos.
Right, I know.
We didn't have videos, but these days, Yes, put those videos up, put them on YouTube, send them, attach them in an email to a coach. It's a great way to get the ball rolling.
Now, so the big question is at the end of the day, um, before you got in, well, today, let's say today, when you look back on that whole process, like what do you think it cost your family to obtain that scholarship? You know, like,
Yeah. So to put some perspective on it here, I went to Berkeley Public School, and this was in 2004, 2008. So, yearly scholarship, including room and board, tuition, was about $20,000 a year, $25,000 a year, which,
it's cheap these days.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good deal these days. Back then, it was a little more. And that was for 4 years. When I look at the tennis career, my junior career, what my parents paid in terms of travel, tournaments. We went all over the country to play these tournaments since I was 12. I took lessons from Robert Lansdorp. So I took a lot of lessons over the years, a lot of clinics. I can't even put a value on that, but I'll tell you, it was quite a bit more than my scholarship.
Right? So,
yeah.
So you basically paid for your schooling, probably paid for more than your schooling, but your reward was going to a great college, a Division I, right? Having your full tuition paid for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Was a room and board paid for you also?
Yes.
Oh, so you had a full ride.
Right, and books and
Wow,
yeah.
that is awesome. Now, in today's world, just from speaking to you and some other coaches, they're now, I hear about half scholarships now. What does that mean?
So it varies from school to school, especially between Division 1, 2, and 3, or not 3, sorry, Division 1 and 2. Men and women's programs, it's different on both sides. A lot of times, for Division 1, you see on the women's side, you see a few more full scholarships just because of Title IX. They offer more scholarships. Division 2, for instance, at where I coach, we're not giving a full scholarship, maybe not even always a half. We're just, we're helping out with just some athletic aid that goes towards tuition. So, definitely it depends on where you fit on the spectrum, right, of your rankings and your list and your UTRs. Obviously, if you're on that higher end or top player, you're going to be receiving those full scholarships or that higher athletic aid. So it varies, I would say, from division and from men's and women's.
So like at a Cal, let's say today, do they still offer full scholarships?
I would assume, on the women's side,
Okay,
they do. The men's side, I think it's a little bit different, just because they're working with a limited amount of how many scholarships they can actually give out. So, if there's one full scholarship, maybe, they might have to split it.
right.
But on the women's side, you tend to see more of those full scholarships being out.
Looking at your career and looking at your present career, would you do it again? Like just to circle all the way back. Would you go through the sacrifice? Would you the time, the effort, learning the game, perfecting the game?
Short answer is yes, and I'd say yes and do it 100 times over. I remember when I was at Cal, we had a former NCAA champion come talk to our team, and one of the things that stuck with me, and in the moment, again, being young, it didn't really resonate right then and there, but she said, moments like these, this college tennis experience, playing on a team, playing for national championships, this will change your life. She's like, 10 years out, you're going to be looking back and be like, man, that was amazing. And I'm in that stage now where it does that college tennis experience can change your life. It gives you a lot of the tools and experiences that you need to become this person that you want to be after college, and I think, well, it was a lot of work and, some tears, but it was all worth it.
So I know from speaking to people in the business world that they actually specifically look for people that played on college tennis teams. Now, they do that, and this is just my guess, because it's all about risk and reward on the court. Um, when you're in a certain situation playing tennis, do I hedge my bets? Do I hedge my bets and go for it, or do I play it conservative? If I'm down, what do I do? If I'm up, what do I do? How do I close this out? Right? So it's all about percentages and risk, right? Christina, would you agree with me on that one?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there in that, um, you know, college tennis graduates are great candidates for business world and life after college. One, they're given these experiences in college tennis, just dealing with pressure, off court, being able to manage themselves, but as well as working with others and collaborating and that team aspect. And as a tennis player, I think instinctively, as you're playing, and hopefully you're doing this, is you are keeping stats in your brain, right? Going, what's going on, the reality of what's happening, and being able to make these decisions based off kind of what's going on out there.
So adjustments too, right? Like,
Yeah.
you if you're going down in flames, are we going to do something different, or are we just going to keep going, right? It's up to you, right? Do you learn from that? It's a big thing. It's a big thing, guys. You just don't whack the ball on the court and expect to win, right? It's all about in between the brain sometimes, especially at a higher level. So what we learned today is that getting that college tennis scholarship is not cheap. It's a process, it's a dedication, it's a family effort, and it's a lot of money. It'll probably cost you more to get that scholarship, okay, than the scholarship itself. So it's definitely not an easy process. All right. So those of you who want to do that and you're seventh, eighth grade, freshman in high school, make sure you're dedicated. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw this back to Christina and say, what would you tell people out there who's kind of in that age group and ready to get going and looking forward to possibly a college tennis scholarship?
I think if you are interested in playing college tennis, you are, like Harry said, seventh, eighth grade, maybe you're freshman in high school, get going, start the process, put your head down and get to work. Of course, it's going to be hard. I think follow what's inside here, find a good group of people that support you, family, coaches, friends to help you. It makes that process a little bit more enjoyable. It doesn't have to be painful. This is all a learning lesson. Also have some patience with your parents if this is their first time going through it. It's a learning lesson for them as well. But ask questions. If you know other coaches who have been through the process or players, or definitely ask some questions of how can I get myself to stand out, how can I make this process easier. But you really got to want it for yourself. If you start to waver, you're not going to get it. And as whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of it.
So I'd like to thank Christina for joining me today.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.